it's possible the black holes could essentially recreate another galaxy somehow.
White hole.
A white hole, yeah.
But it's also kind of depressing to like have it there on display, but out of reach. And
well, isn't that just like going to a strip club, though? The only way that you could say that there are no other species or no aliens out there, the only way you could say that is if God is part of the equation.
So now we're having a tapestry of galaxies, and I'm just like playfully entertaining this idea. Like, what if there's a puzzle, a code to solve to end the simulation? Welcome to another Inside the Kitchen Sink studio. I'm Casey Rochford. Joining me tonight is birthday boy Eric Rosenblatt. Hello, Eric.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that is me. I am, in fact, I am Eric Rosenblatt. That is correct. What are we doing here? Oh, yeah, okay. Casey and I, we write our own music, and it's available out there on the information superhighway. So, stick around to the end of the show and we'll hear a new song. And, you could check us out on the World Wide Web at www.ksmvidcast.com or AOL keyword kitchen sink. Yeah. So, no, that's not really
your Prodigy CD-ROM.
Yeah. Oh no, floppies.
Floppies.
You got to stack up them floppies, man. Yeah. Boot up your disc. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that we don't actually have an AOL keyword, although we could probably actually get one now. That nobody uses AOL except for email.
Oh, it's still around now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's still going. I mean, mostly it's email. But it's probably just because people they don't want to get rid of it because it's kind of like a phone number, you've told everybody and that's what they know. So to change it, you'd have to like let hundreds or thousands of people know. So it's like, I'll just keep it.
But I mean, like AOL, like people who had AOL addresses are probably dead by now, right? Like it's been that long, hasn't it?
Almost. Yeah. There's still a few out there that, it's.
Imagine when you were old enough to say that, like, oh, people who use like bulletin board systems, they're like long dead.
Exactly. So I'll bet people think that was like some kind of segue into the topic of tonight's discussion, but actually it's not. I just was thinking like I was thinking about internet and stuff. I was like, well, when I said the information superhighway, I remembered AOL keywords. So Casey, what are we going to talk about today? What's on the agenda?
Well, the time of this recording happens to be your birthday, and they just released some rather fantastic images from the James Webb telescope. The thing floating out in space, the wibbly wobbly thing, doing the swirly things.
Yep. Yeah.
Various other astrophysical terms that you may or may not understand.
Yeah, you may not understand. Yeah. The James Webb telescope is pretty cool. Like, I saw some of the images, and it's just like
it's like a nebula and like a bunch of galaxies inside like a grain of sand held at arm's length,
yeah,
like, or whatever. Like
that's the I'm sure by now people have probably seen at least that image or maybe some of the other ones. But it's incredible because yeah, it is. It's a little tiny, like just a speck of the sky or a what we could see, basically, just a little tiny thing, and it contains all of that stuff and probably more. Like who knows? It may go beyond. But oh, it's crazy to think about how much stuff there is out there and how deep it goes.
yeah, and like just seeing that has got to open a lot of eyes to the laws of probability. Like there has got to be some other sentient life forms out there.
Oh,
somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, because
now we're like never ever gonna get anywhere near. Like
no, not without some kind of like very exotic propulsion systems or some system of moving people around or things around. Something probably even beyond what Star Trek warp drive and stuff.
Well, yeah, even Star Trek was like in the confines of our own galaxy. And you're talking about like a bunch of other galaxies way far away.
Oh,
like, wow.
Space is quite vast. Yeah. And, it, yeah, because like in Star Trek, yeah, it's just this galaxy. But I think even in Star Wars, well, it's a galaxy far, far away, but it's basically all within a galaxy.
Yeah.
And so but the distances are quite vast. I mean, even at warp 10, crossing the galaxy it takes a minute. Yeah. Like, well, Voyager kind of showed that even at warp speed, it takes a long time to cross a galaxy. So yeah, getting to any other civilization, and yeah, it just probabilistically speaking, even just looking at that one image, well, I can imagine that a million civilizations have come and gone just within that little tiny space that we see. And who knows what they're like, or even if those stars even exist anymore, and that's one of the crazy things. And it's kind of, I guess, in a way, there's a term for it, which I can't remember, but essentially it's this kind of fear or sense of dread that space causes. And I could kind of see that, because it really, like, if you feel insignificant just stargazing in a dark field at night, well, this should make you feel even more insignificant. And knowing also that the stuff that we're seeing is stuff that we will never be able to actually touch. It may not even exist anymore. But
and this is stuff like the naked eye will never even be able to perceive from the surface of Earth, right? Like,
yeah,
like, wow.
Yeah, we got to be really like out in space, essentially, away from any kind of interference, to see that. So yeah, I mean, you look out and you think, oh well, there's a few stars and stuff. No, there's even more than that. And then when you look beyond the stars, there's just every single corner, every spot that you could look when you zoom in really far is full of galaxies and stuff, space stuff, which is mind-boggling. But here's the thing, kind of going back to Star Trek, with the episode The Inner Light.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yeah, we probably won't be able to necessarily meet other life forms from, well, I would say probably, I don't know if in my lifetime, but within a certain time frame, maybe if there's somebody who's, a teenager watching this right now, in their lifetime, we might encounter alien life. It's possible, like whether it be first contact, like a direct contact, or through some kind of transmission. I have a feeling it'll happen.
Well, here's a question I have. So the stars we can see
Mhm.
are all like long dead by the time their light gets here. So
Some of them,
like these galaxies, like super far away, like what if they're just like gone already,
it's possible. Yeah. Well, and maybe we don't necessarily know how everything works, because at
Well,
the
there was
center,
some weird smudging going on in the galaxy photo, and I guess that was like red shifting and like gravity wells and stuff. So there's like probably some black hole action, much like we have going on here.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe that's just like what is at the center of galaxies, varying in size, of course.
For sure, at least galaxies like ours, there's a black hole at the center of our galaxy, at Centaurus A, basically, in that direction. Previously it was speculated, now it's basically been confirmed that there is a supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy, which is, why it has that like flushing toilet sort of shape. Not to terrify anybody with thoughts like that, because if space scares you, well, that will definitely make you have trouble sleeping. But it's a fact, and it's not like the human civilization will probably be long gone by the time our solar system gets close to that black hole. But the thing is, yeah, I'm sure that most of the stars in those galaxies that we see have burnt out, but they left behind matter, and there were certainly black holes all over the place. And it's possible the black holes could essentially recreate another galaxy somehow.
White hole.
A white hole, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it is possible. I'm not up on my astrophysics in that regard, but it seems, well, I mean, I don't think we really fully comprehend, anybody fully comprehends actually how those things work. But I would imagine that it's possible for all that matter to kind of collapse in on itself and explode again and generate the same kind of conditions that created the galaxy in the first place.
Right.
So maybe it's a kind of a cycle. Cue the circle of life from the Lion King.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly beautiful. It's endlessly fascinating, but it's also kind of depressing to like have it there on display, but out of reach. And
well, isn't that just like going to a strip club, though?
depends on the strip club.
Well, yes, that's true. But I get what you're saying, that it's, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's kind of like, well, it's sort of what I was saying before, that we'll never actually be able to touch any of these things, visit these places, explore these places. But also what I was saying with the inner light comment is, maybe we won't be able to explore or meet the peoples or beings from other worlds, or see other worlds, but well, in that episode, a long extinct species sent out a probe to encounter, basically to share their history with others. So that may happen, maybe not quite like it does where it takes over your mind and you live another life, but I mean, a probe that comes from somewhere that is long gone, that some eventually over millions of years gets to somewhere and may get to here. And honestly, looking at how many galaxies there are out there, well, it's highly probable that that will happen at some point. If in fact, well, and I mean, the only way that you could say that there are no other species or no aliens out there, the only way you could say that is if God is part of the equation.
Why bother making all of that only to stick just us on this tiny blue marble?
Which that's a good point. Yeah, because it's like, okay, well, why build all this stuff that they will? It's kind of remarkable that we even built the tools to even witness these things, things that we could not see terrestrially. Just looking up into the sky, we only see just some of the brightest, nearest stars, and that's about it. So yeah, it's kind of a completely pointless build. So I mean, even in that sense, yeah.
Hey, so you know how like our ancestors looked up to the stars and saw patterns and created these constellations and associated them with gods, and we have all this lore surrounding all that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pattern seeking. And, you know, there's every so often there's something legitimate, some legitimate pattern that you stumble upon.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that happened anywhere in Constellations necessarily, but
no, but in the course of pattern seeking of in all facets. Yeah.
So now we're having a tapestry of galaxies, and I'm just like playfully entertaining this idea. Like, what if there's a puzzle, a code to solve to end the simulation, and it's hidden in these galaxies and how they're laid out? And man, we need like Alan Turing or something.
Yeah. Totally. Oh, that would be an interesting. I mean, it's an interesting proposition there. What if there is some kind of engineer? I don't want to necessarily say God, but it's possible there could be some kind of group of engineers. They're one of my favorite games, Star Control 2, kind of centers around that there's these ancient beings that used to exist millennia ago, and they were spacefaring, and they left the galaxy essentially, and they left behind clues as to where they went and why. And oh god, good game. I highly recommend playing it. It was just kind of like a 1990 2D sort of pseudo. I don't know. It's great. Sort of a spacefaring sort of game, but they a lot of the things that drive the story center around these beings, these shaggy creatures that left behind technology and information, but they modified planets in a certain pattern to indicate where they went. And you know, if you're wise enough or clever enough, you can figure out where they went. And so, you know, maybe it's a little too big on a galactic level, but I don't know. Who knows? If you're a god, maybe it's not too big, you know? And by God, I mean just somebody who knows all the stuff, potentially.
Well, I mean, if you were going to put like I don't know, like the answer to what is the meaning of life somewhere out there, you wouldn't necessarily want to seed it in something that you could just figure out right away and like win the game really super fast, right? Like you got to build up to the point where you can unlock the next level of, you know, space observation.
Yeah. Like it wouldn't be, well, I guess if I were a puzzle builder like that, I wouldn't build it so that given the tools you're born with, you could potentially unlock this problem. This would be something that would require incredible technical skill to even see it. And then it would require incredible mathematical or code breaking skill to even crack it. So that's a good point. Yeah. Huh. And that actually, I like that because it sort of puts meaning behind what is honestly kind of, like you said, it's a little depressing. That like you will never be able to go to any of those places, yet we can see them.
And a cluster of galaxies would be the place to hide something like that, because stars do burn out fairly quickly, but massive clusters of billions of stars are going to take a little longer to like no longer be visible, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's an interesting, huh?
Or I wonder if we could, I don't know, somehow like use the galaxies to create NFTs of like uncrackable proportions.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
And like encrypt the fuck out of stuff.
Well, what if we end up, and this kind of thought experiment is useful because it's like, well, what if the human race doesn't nuke itself into oblivion and actually is able to solve some of these actually quite simplistic problems that we squabble over so often, and finally learn to get along, and we achieve our potential and we're able to build or do anything. Well, maybe we would want to leave such a puzzle for the future, as we transcend our existence into beings of pure energy and light and travel as tachyons or something like that. Like, yeah, like leave it, pay it forward, I guess.
You know what? Like, a thought just occurred to me. Like, say we figured out a way to like travel pretty fast, but not fast enough that we wouldn't need to like, spend a generation or two on a spacecraft. Well, what if you decided that? Well, you couldn't decide, right? Like when we reach our destination, what will the society be structured like? Like you would be like, well, it should be anarchy, and I would be like, well, it should be democratic socialism, and then we could just have a bunch of ships and put those like-minded people on those ships, and for generations they conduct an isolated experiment of the efficacy of that particular type of governance or lack thereof, and whoever doesn't kill themselves and lands on the planet, they're the winners.
Well, yeah. Now, what if I would propose a slight twist to this? Because what if, say, the varying groups traveling to one particular place, what if they somehow manage to survive? Because yes, all our systems are very precarious and warfaring and problematic, but we're still here. So after thousands of years, civilization is pretty much still here, kinda. So if they were able to get there, then you'd have a fight on your hands. Okay, we're all here. So who gets this planet? So I think what would work is to utilize our space telescopes like Kepler and things like that, find M-class planets, which is more of a Star Trek thing, but I think it's fair. Earth-like planets, and everybody kind of like, I guess you kind of draw straws, like, okay, who gets what, that kind of thing, and then everybody packs up and they head off to their respective planets, which hopefully we can find some that aren't that far away so we could still communicate eventually. And then our long journeys there, and then we land and then create civilizations. Well, let's say we don't kill each other on the way there. Yeah, I shudder to think of the meth head starship. They're just going to be like pulling all the metal out of everything. And like, I could totally see that. But so then they get to these planets, and then we get to have an experiment, like a proper experiment, a fresh, clean slate with these different structural ideas to test these theories. Like, hey, how well does this work? How well does that work? Because here's the problem on Earth. We can't do that because nobody is doing all the, like, we're all doing different things, essentially. And so that's kind of an issue. But if you had, people who sort of were similar thoughts and stuff like that, all going to one place and starting their own thing under their own ideas, well, we could truly test which thing works best. So yeah, I do kind of like that idea, though.
Yeah. And then, like, do humans even like deserve to, go on for all eternity? I mean, like, maybe there's other life forms that deserve a chance to kind of take the reins, as it were, and
maybe
lead us to the next best thing.
Well, perhaps. If, but the next best thing might be the butcher shop. So I don't know that we either deserve or don't deserve anything. We just simply exist. Like, we're the product of millions of years of evolution and all kinds of things and environmental factors that kind of constructed us. And like, here we are. Like, I didn't elect to be born here. Like, I suppose the argument as to whether you deserve a thing would stem, like, from if you say we're a floating spirit or something in the wibbly wobbly world, the in-between world, and the overlord, the god or whatever is like, well, where do you want to go? And what do you want to be? And you looked and you said, yeah, I want to go there. And I want to be one of those things. Okay, well, you chose to be there, and you chose that way of life. You chose to participate with those beings. If that were the case, then sure. Then we could talk about whether something deserves something or not. I don't know. Humans are kind of remarkable in a way. Like, yes, we're capable of huge amounts of destruction, like very destructive, seemingly evil things. But we're also capable of doing great things, like amazing things, doing completely selfless acts. We're capable of altruism, and I don't know of any other species on planet Earth that really.
Oh, there's tons.
No, not altruism. I'm saying no. That possesses all of our capacities.
Yeah,
that I think we are kind of unique-ish in that regard. There may be different creatures who possess one or more of things, but all of those things including the fact that we have advanced languages and advanced technologies and manipulate the environment around us in really significant ways, which could be good, could be bad. And also, I think the being self-aware of our place in the world, like our own impact. I don't think there's another creature that has that particular skill, like in a big sense. And maybe it's just because of who we are that like we're able to actually perceive all these things and recognize them. But yeah, I guess that can bring some benefits, I think, or make us not so bad.
I mean, it is interesting that, like, just here on Earth, there's animal species that have more heightened senses in other ways than we do, and perhaps even some senses that we are just scratching the surface on being able to observe, but don't actually have ourselves.
Yeah, like, well, a couple of good examples: magnetic fields, electric fields, also being able to detect polarized, like the polarization angle of light, those kinds of things. Just as an example of what would be beyond our five senses that other animals have.
Even thought, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
because if you think about it, like, I mean, animals think,
Yeah.
and we think, and that's kind of the process of electricity, really, which is going to be detectable by something.
Yeah.
And if it's detectable, it could be discerned and translated. And I mean, we've been talking for a long time since we started the show about doing an episode on, like, mind reading, right?
Brain waves and stuff.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that kind of touches on that, right? Like, I mean, how do we know we are, like, the most advanced species on this planet?
Well, and I guess that the question would have to come up is, like, what constitutes being advanced?
Yeah. I mean, we build clever things, sure, but like, we're also a bunch of assholes a lot of the time. So.
That's true, but we're not the only assholes on planet Earth. In fact, it's mostly assholes. I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. Like, it's mostly assholes on Earth. It's actually kind of uncommon for any animal or creature to behave selflessly. Just in the, if you account for all living things, most living things don't behave selflessly. They're all either according to program or behaving selfishly.
I mean, but you set aside needs to live, right? Like, yeah, things kill what they need to eat. Like, you can't really count that as, like, war. That's nature.
Well,
like,
they don't.
War is more like killing just to kill.
And
for the sport of it. That's
war is an organized killing where you have a team, like hyenas, a pack of hyenas going after some kind of prey and killing it.
War, battle, act of war, whatever you want to call it, like, just killing for any other reason other than to, like, sustain yourself or your pack or whatever. Is like pretty uniquely human. In fact, as far as I know, it is uniquely human. If you're threatening their youth or their territory or their ability to get food or whatever, that's how you get attacked. But it's not like they stalk you and figure out when your kid's going to school and, like evil shit that humans do, like
Mhm.
animals aren't doing that.
Well, no, but maybe they're not aware of all the factors they could be observing too. So who knows? Certainly it can't be denied that we have a very refined and complex system of thought that is pretty remarkable. And I don't know,
like that evolves from, though, like that doing things just to be mean and nasty. What is that? Like, why?
I don't know.
I get that it serves yourself and you get to pass your genes on and all that stuff, but like in the long run, I feel like, I don't know, that should have been weeded out.
Well, and it could be that things like that are just simply an inevitable byproduct of things being so complex that you can have these kind of anomalous behaviors. And a lot of this stuff on an individual basis, say a serial killer, right? That would be what I'm talking about. As far as like organized warfare, where 100,000 people attack a country with no provocation, that actually is a product of our evolution. It is a product of the growth of society. It's a product of religion being a component of that, where people defer to an authoritative being, which then molded into governments where, the state is now the god and people look to them for answers, and they get into their tribes and they defend the tribe, and it's all about the tribe. It's all about your team logo and colors and stuff like that. And people are willing, because it's so central to their identity and their sense of who they are, they're willing to do stuff they wouldn't do on their own for the sake of the tribe or of the collective or whatever. And so I feel like we're still in a transitional phase. There's obviously things beyond. There are yet unrecognized or unrealized potential future ways of doing things, and maybe evolutionary changes to our mental structure or our societies. I mean, in my worldview, societal view, I guess war is completely pointless. Like, it's actually self-destructive. So I would like to see a time when we grow beyond that. And I think we can. I don't think it's like inherent to our being to do things like that. I think it's a product of, I don't know, conditions, programming, upbringing, stuff like that. Well, that's programming too. So it's society at large that kind of like dictates that.
So war is kind of like the gun control argument. In order to get rid of war, you would have to have no military.
Well, no, because that's sort of what you're saying.
I mean, you can't really have a war without like an organized, structured, like whatever you want to call it, a king and his kingdom of knights is the fucking general and the army, right? Like,
no, you're right. You're absolutely correct. Like from a very cursory sort of, or a simplified stance, like, okay, yeah, of course you can't wage war without a military and without tools of war and soldiers and all that stuff. However, getting to say that we, like, the only way for there not to be wars in the world is for there to be no militaries, I don't believe that to be true. I think it comes down to motivation. Like, we have to make war, or we have to get to a point as a society, a global society, where war just doesn't make any sense.
Well, it never has made sense.
No,
but it still exists, and that's because it's because we have easy tools for those few tiny people in power that get all pissy to utilize them to do their, be at their beck and call. Like, that's basically what it is. It's like, you're never going to get rid of conflict, but if you take away all military, like if you went to the UN and just gave some Picard level speech, like, everybody just disband your militaries right now and we will end war, then, like, if Biden gets pissed off at Putin, well, they'll have to go duke it out mano a mano, and that's the end of it.
Or use nonviolent conflict resolution, which is another option.
Which I'm sure they would be much more willing to entertain if it was just them, Well,
it would be entertaining for me if it was just them in the ring, like duking it out. That'd be funny. That's how we should do it.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I think, though, it goes deeper than that. My point is that it's not the existence of the military that makes wars happen. It's the fact that it makes it possible. Well, yes, exactly. But it's the tribalism, this deference to the big one, the big guy, like, oh, that person, this is my whoever, king or president or prime minister or whatever. And these people are willing to do acts which are if you did this as an individual, well, you'd be going to prison. But somehow when you get hundreds of thousands of individuals together and do it, well, that's a statistic, like, oh, well, that's just how we do things. It's just war. But why are we even fighting to begin with? Why can't we solve the problems other ways? And one of the things that I think has been beneficial is global trade. China.
Okay, so you made a really good point. Like, tribalism is absolutely a problem, but I think it works hand in hand with the existence of the tool, being the military or being a gun, whatever level of argument we want to take it to.
Yeah,
you take away either one of those, though, and you cannot get to the culmination of war or mass shootings or whatever it is, but which one is easier to do? To change billions of individual minds with all their opinions, or to deconstruct a handful of really unnecessary constructions?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I will say the former is actually easier. Because nobody, you would have, in order for you to get everybody on planet Earth to agree to disband their militaries, you'd essentially have to achieve what I was talking about before, about us deciding that, nonviolent conflict resolution is the correct way. We agree, and we will lay down our arms because, war is stupid. We don't want to kill each other. Let's have a sit down. So in order to achieve what you're talking about, you'd have to achieve what I'm talking about. So that would be a prerequisite.
You're only convincing a couple hundred world leaders to do the thing rather than
the problem. People. I would argue the problem is that there are a couple hundred world leaders. That there's a small handful of people that, for whatever reason, everybody trusts and follows blindly, unquestioningly. Like, that is actually a bigger problem, and that's a problem worth addressing. But here's the thing. If you, let's say, it's kind of like a who puts your gun down first kind of thing. You first. Well, no, you first. So which country is going to, how do you get everybody to agree to have no military? Because they're going to be like, well, I don't want to disarm because those guys over there, they said some mean things about me and they got a military. So I want them to do it first. And then they're going to be like, well, but I don't trust those people. And they've got this huge military and they've been threatening us for years. I want them to go first. So nobody's going to lay down arms. Nobody's going to give it up.
That's a simplified view, though. Like there's a psychology to, like a room full of people, right? Like, and this isn't just a movie thing. This is an actual phenomenon, right? Like if a room full of people, is faced with a choice and one person stands up and says, I am Spartacus. Well, then somebody else does. And it forms this chain reaction, right? And then if there's any dissenter, suddenly they're outnumbered by the people that are like, hey, come on, just like, this makes sense. Get on board with it. So like, if there's dissent along the way, there's still going to be enough to squash it if need be. But then when it gets down to like the last few, there's so many others that are just like, look how awesome this is, and I kind of have faith that something like that could work if you're able to spark it,
You're right. And in fact, that what you're saying applies to what we're both talking about.
Yes.
Like you could, the same logic applies to both sides of those, like either dissolving militaries or finding ways of making militaries just obsolete and unnecessary.
Yeah. And I mean, world leaders, like I would still argue that like imagine how less pissed off you'd be that there are world leaders if there were no militaries and wars or ways of knocking on your door with guns to get tax money. If it was just all like honor systems and do what you will and don't harm your neighbor kind of philosophies.
I actually think that the idea of world leaders is a good thing. When you have people like
truly good people.
Yeah, like actual good people who set an example and they do good things. Gandhi, not necessarily a good person, but he did good things. Nelson Mandela, awesome person. Like he's an actual leader. He's going out there and making a difference in a good way, not like just yelling at everybody and telling everybody that, those people are bad and whatnot. It's like, no, bringing people together, telling people to chill out, that kind of thing, setting an example. Like that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that as long as the general public recognizes they are not a god. Like it's just a human being. They might be a really smart human being, like Stephen Hawking or something. Like he would be a world leader. And like a smart person who has changed the world. Even Steve Jobs, right? He didn't really invent anything, but ultimately he did kind of change the world in his own way by pushing forward these changes that really did make a change.
And gods are the problem. Like religion really did spark politics.
It did.
And really what we should be fashioning our concept of leaders upon is teachers, elders, the wise ones, like people who have something like genuinely useful to offer, world experience, introspection, philosophy.
Oh, sure. And somebody who continually demonstrates the ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
Like you go to them and you say, hey,
without force.
Well, yeah, exactly. That like, I have the answer to this question and here's what you do. And you, as the person asking the question, you go and you do it and, hey, it works. Like if there's a consistency there of somebody being able to solve problems over and over again, well, that makes them, I guess that puts them in the class of leader. It qualifies them to be a leader, somebody who can solve problems or teach people, like, which I think that actually those two things are kind of intertwined a bit. They go together, but we kind of, well, it's kind of become just about popularity. It really is kind of going into idiocracy. That we live in a world where it's a popularity contest. You don't have to demonstrate,
really teach us anything,
or ever succeed at doing anything that they claim that they're able to do.
I mean, if you look at stuff, there's going to be things that do get done, but whether or not they're like worthwhile is questionable.
Or whether it happened because of them, or it just happened because there's so many people behind them, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, like that's how any team efforts work, right? Like the CEO doesn't build the widgets, but they're going to take credit for it and, you know, say it was my direction that made the widgets, you know. And
well, yeah, and a good example, going back to space, I want to keep like a little bit of space involved in this conversation.
I think it tied together pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Kennedy and the moon missions, like his speeches, which I there's a few random presidential speeches that I watch all the time that I love, that just feel good and are very inspirational. And his, like, you know, we're going to go to the moon speech and stuff like that motivated hundreds of thousands of people to go and do this thing. And yeah, some money was involved, but it really was like this collective energy. Like, you know what, we're going to do something fantastic. And we really did do the impossible back in the 60s. Like everything that happened on paper was impossible. My favorite part of that entire program, the Apollo guidance computer, should not have been possible, but it was built. Like, and that thing, if it were not for that, well, the whole moon mission wouldn't have been a thing. But every single component, you know, between like the spacesuits that were sewn together and the different materials and all the testing that was done, like all the different companies and all the different people who were involved in the engineering and the building and the assembly of things, and the astronauts and the support crew, which, like, they deserve a lot of respect. Oh, yeah. But all of that came together to get us there, and that's an achievement. Like that's a worthy achievement. That's something that's like, you know, we should feel good that somehow, despite the fact that like the Cold War was raging, and I think that there were some potential very dangerous political things happening at the time. Like, well, we almost nuked, US and Russia almost got in a hot exchange of nukes with each other. But even through that, you know,
yeah, through it all, that was like probably the last real example of healthy competition doing good for the world.
Yeah.
Between governments. Like, yeah, everything else since then and a lot of shit before then has really been just destructive in nature.
Yeah, I mean, we had because of the Apollo program, there was well, I don't want to dismiss the Russians and their side of things, because they were instrumental, and in fact, honestly, if nothing else, we can give credit to Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, for being our greatest competitor. That, like, they were the other that we were like showing off against, like, and they were always better than us. And we're like, well, I'll show you one day, you know, like they kept on winning every single time. And finally we did something they weren't able to do. And if the Soviet Union was not our competitor, if they were not in opposition with us, well, I don't think there'd be the motivation to do that. Maybe, but probably not.
I mean,
So
if they had a kitchen sink microscopy discussion, they probably would have just worked together. Like, oh, hey, how about this idea? Oh, that's a really good idea. What if we tweaked it like this? And I firmly believe that for whatever competition brings to the table, I think conversation would bring it like threefold more.
yeah,
Like,
it could. Sure, I think both are valuable. But ultimately, Russia and the U.S. did work together.
yeah,
There was the
and you can have
Apollo-Soyuz. My favorite thing, and I have a little token with metal from both spacecraft fashioned into a token. The Apollo-Soyuz program, Cold War was still going on, but the U.S. and the Soviet Union met in space, shook hands, exchanged things, and tested some stuff. And there you go. And the Soviet Union built Mir. The U.S. helped keep Mir going. And then the ISS, it was both Russian and, well, it was kind of more or less a global thing, but it was mostly the U.S. and Russia that were building a lot of the bulk of the components. Okay, let's not forget the Canada arm. Okay, go Canada. That's a pretty cool piece of tech. And it makes me sad. The ISS does, because as the name, well, ISS, International Space Station, supposed to be international, right? So China has been building up their space program for quite a while, and they wanted to participate, but oh no, this is an exclusive club. You guys can't hang with us. So we wouldn't let China in. So China built their own space station, which is actually pretty cool. Like, you should check it out. It's a pretty cool space station, but it's dumb that we're not all working together. Like, we should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can still have competition within conversation. That's what debate is.
Yeah.
But then you don't waste all of that, like, I don't know, like ground level work being done over and over again in different places. If you all work together and build off the shoulder of giants, like sort of mentality, right?
Yeah.
We would go further faster.
We absolutely would. No, you are totally correct. Like, if our mindset were different, well, yeah, we would already be Star Trek now if we weren't spending a bunch of time fighting. Speaking of warfare too, I was going to say, without all the machines of war, well, people have been warring since before spears existed, so we'd find a way to war. If it, yeah. But
it always had organization, though.
Well, that's the thing. It's that organization, the central control, you follow this god, this leader, that kind of thing. What was I going to say? Competition, good competition. Or like a collaborative competition. It's like when you and I were roommates back in 2003. Like, I wouldn't say it's a competition specifically, like to say, oh, I'm better than you, but our feedback of writing music, where you would do a song and I'd hear it, I'm like, oh man, that's so good. Like,
yeah.
And then it inspired me to create something. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try to do something as cool as that.
That's the thing, right? Inspiration is all it takes for competition.
Yeah.
Inspiration to do something good. It doesn't have to be quantified against another thing.
Yeah. Well, and to me, when we were doing that, a lot of times it's like, I thought, okay, I want to write a song that Casey is like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That was what it was about. It wasn't about like being the best or anything like that. It was just like, I just want to like blow somebody's mind, and it was like we went back and forth and got better and better and better. Like every single song, like, oh man, what a time.
Yeah.
But that's the right way to do things, where you do have collaboration, but there's a little bit of one-upmanship, I guess, in a sense. Just yeah, but more for the sake of the thing that you're doing than for yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a cultural thing that I think we can overcome. That we're raised to think that we have to fight, that we have to, all of our games, all of our sports are built around this kind of like, you either win or you don't sort of thing. But I don't know that that's the best way to do things. I don't think that's like, it's fine when you're playing a game and there's no real stakes. But when you're doing something like running a space program or something like that, or exploring space, I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think it's very destructive, and makes progress very slow.
Yeah. The thing, I think the shittiest thing we did was to put the American flag on the moon.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Like we
that was an asshole move. That was like, yeah, we got here first. Well, instead of like Earth going somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right. That, although here, again, I would propose a slight adjustment. You go to McDonald's, right? And they have like a big American flag, and then they have a smaller McDonald's flag. So why don't we have when we plant a flag on the moon, we plant a big Earth flag, and then it has the US flag like a little bit smaller, like, oh, well, this happens to be the country that pretty much did this, but it was for Earth. That's okay. Like, we get a little bit of, you can feel good about accomplishment, but really it wasn't about the country, it's about the planet.
But we have a whole fucking Bible written about how to treat the flag because it's our idol.
Yeah. The flag code.
Yeah.
Which is more like, it isn't really law. It's more of a advisory thing. But it is kind of silly that we have that.
It is. There's a minute microscopy about that. I remember, I'll link to it right there.
Nice. Yeah. Because the flag is like, it's just a symbol. And symbols have uses, like well, it's like in witchcraft, there's symbology is important to to focus things, and well, I don't want to get into that, but symbols are important, but they're not everything. You don't need to like punch out your neighbor because they didn't fly the US flag correctly, or any flag for that matter. Like, so what? Who cares? I mean, maybe just be like, hey, it would be nice if you did that thing, because that feels a little bit disrespectful. Because this is kind of important to me. Whatever. Like, have a conversation, but don't be adversarial with people over it. And that's, I guess, the problem is people come out of the gate being adversarial. Like, oh, an assumption, like, well, there must be, or they must have had some kind of like ill intent behind that act because it's so obvious. Well, 99% of the times that you think that, you're fucking wrong. Like, people are kind of dumb and don't really consider things. They just kind of bumble their way through life. Sometimes things are deliberate, but probably not. Even if they are deliberate, it's like, well, but then you have to assume that they know all that you know.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, we as observers can't assume that we don't know that they don't know.
Yeah.
right? Like maybe they do know that it was deliberate. And we look at them and go, well, you can't know that was deliberate. Well, fuck off, dude. How do you know that? I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a good reason it looks like I'm coming out of the gate pissed off. Like nobody knows. Like, if you don't know, maybe just shut up.
Well, I don't know
if you
that,
do know, then you can, interject. But
well, that's a little extreme because I think that it's important to ask questions and have conversations like at all times. We should always begin with a question and a conversation and not simply reacting to what we perceive to be. Because, hey, there's a minute microscopy. Perception is reality. Up there, maybe if Casey remembers that, or perception versus reality, I think it was. Which
I think it was equals reality.
Equals, yeah, it was equals, yeah. Oh yeah, we're a bit. It's getting late, that kind of thing. So memories getting old. Oh man,
half hour of sleep.
Yeah. I just had a birthday, so suddenly now I'm a whole year older than I was.
Yeah, yesterday you were a year younger.
Yeah. So man,
that was so quick, man.
Oh, my back. Oh. Crazy.
Yeah.
I just I know we always throw out all kinds of stuff, and I mean, there's a lot of angles we could go down here that are actually really, really good. And this is something I love about our dynamic, like, is that we can like pull these like things out of the shadows that like no one has talked about or thinks about and connect them to all these things. I love that.
Well, all the human condition stuff we kind of diverged into is actually related to the galaxies that are out of reach, because if we ever want to get anywhere near those galaxies, we got to solve this shit first. We're not getting off this rock and going way out there if we can't get along.
Well, and that was what I was saying earlier, that like it does require us solving these petty disagreements that we have, things that are honestly immaterial. Like most of the things that people get angry about at each other and fight about are completely pointless and have no value. And there's like no reason.
Yeah.
To, like,
I was
he
talking
could be.
to, go ahead.
I was gonna say we could be like Star Trek at this point, warp drive and wormholes and all this stuff. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently that you might classify as like a social justice warrior, and there were a few things said that I thought were kind of, I don't know, like presumptive and confrontational and based on little information, but vast swaths of assumption and judgments and stuff. And I brought up Daryl Davis, and this person had never heard of Daryl Davis.
Cool.
But I think learning about what Daryl did and still does was pretty eye-opening, and that's a good thing. Like, just telling somebody about a real world series of interactions that one person has done, with conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe helping people, guiding people, being a leader, I guess, guiding people to the understanding that there's more than one way to solve a problem, and more than one way to look at a situation. That, you know, if Daryl Davis had followed, well, any other person's guidance at the time, he probably would not have had the impact that he did. Like the fact that he thought outside the box and was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm going to like have conversations with people and make some friends. And that's how I'll change their mind. And that's,
I think it all sparked from what he said, you know, like when he was a kid and there was the civil rights movements and everything. And he was like learning about racism. And he thought to himself, how can they hate me if they've never met me?
Exactly.
And that right there, just like, well, how do you fix that? Well, I'll go introduce myself.
Yeah. Well, sure. And honestly, that might be the way to solve all of these conflicts, interpersonal conflicts that humans have with each other. Like, because really it's ignorance. Like, no, you don't like these people, but do you actually know any of them? Have you had a conversation, had a beer with somebody?
Yeah. You know what? Like, if we ever like take off, our platform becomes huge and we become, you know, celebrities and we're raking in a bunch of dough and we could just do this full time, invariably we're going to get canceled or whatever. I say right now, we just vow, like, anyone who wants to cancel us, we'll fly out and we'll have a conversation with you. Like, meet us.
Yeah.
Interview us. Talk to us, learn about us, ask us questions, let us explain ourselves and, you know, answer your questions. You know, let us satisfy your curiosities and explain our stance to you in a conversation in a way that we can vibe off of each other. And that's the key, right? Is like, everybody understands things a little bit differently than the next person. And that's where perception plays in, right? And if you don't have a conversation with a particular person, you don't have a way of tailoring your message in a way that they will understand. But that doesn't mean they can never understand it. It just means you have to have that opportunity. Sure.
And I think people, it may be disheartening if you do have a conversation like that and somebody doesn't change their mind. I don't think everybody's going to change their mind. Honestly, we should all be changing our minds. An interaction with somebody should be an opportunity for everybody to learn. Like, we all learn something. You know, everybody is unique with unique experiences.
I'd say maybe in a conversation, it would be a good thing if at least one of you changed your mind. But I don't know. Sometimes that's not necessarily true either, because there's more than two ways to look at anything. So it's possible for two people to be wrong.
But okay, by changing your mind, I don't mean you suddenly think like the other person. It's that you shift the way that you think a little bit. Sometimes you might plant a seed. And that's all it is. That's what the conversation, you could spend hours talking with somebody. And I've done that on far more occasions than I'd like to talk about, having hours long conversations about something. And it was just a seed planting thing, which eventually the person came around and said, oh, yeah, that actually kind of makes sense. Now that I've thought about it for a while. Because remember, we're undoing years or decades of programming, societal programming. Like, you can't fix it in an instant, because it didn't take an instant to grow.
Yeah.
So why would we expect it to be just instantly flipped? You know, it's humans are complex. We have complex minds. It'll take time, and that's okay. Like,
the other important thing to realize is that you could have the right frame of mind and somebody still sways you to change your mind toward the kind of like, I don't want to say the wrong thinking, but like you could be steered off course.
Yeah.
So changing your mind isn't in itself always a good thing. Like there has to be, yeah, there has to be critical thinking applied. Like,
sure,
I mean,
sure.
you know, like people, like in my opinion, people that, you know, were religious and then went atheist and then went back to being religious. It's like, oh, you were there, man. Like,
I know. Yeah. Well, and it shows that they weren't really thinking too deeply. But I don't know that anybody
or pressures,
really,
you know.
Well, there are, but
yeah.
I don't think anybody really thinks too deeply. I know I don't. I struggle with that all the time, trying to keep things logical and consistent, and challenge myself and ask myself questions about why do I think this way, and does this still make sense, and why does it make sense? But that isn't something we're taught. Like,
well, we don't always have the luxury of time either.
No, that's true.
You know, a lot of decisions and you know, like opinions have to be formed on the fly, unfortunately.
True. And I don't know that we're ever gonna, well, just like we're never gonna reach those distant stars, we're never gonna achieve the true answer to what this is all about, like the right way to do things. I don't know that there is a right way.
Yeah. And actually, like that timing thing, that's a very good reason why social justice warriors really need to like calm their tits, because you have to understand, like, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to make the wrong choice. And if you're a celebrity, it's going to get blown up and it's going to be like, oh, they did that one bad thing. They're a bad person now. And you're not going to like give them any room to rectify that or, you know, change their ways. And you're just going to like drive them into an echo chamber. You might change their minds in the wrong direction with all of your fucking virtue signaling that you think is doing good. You're doing bad.
Oh, oh man. Oh, I had like too many thoughts and I've just lost all of them. And now I think I only have one from that, but that brought up a lot of interesting thoughts. Okay, no, I remember one of them. Like, one point is that it's important to understand that fundamentally, a lot of people, even though it may appear on the surface that you might disagree in a big way, I believe that fundamentally most people agree on like the core things. Like on principle, you agree, you're pretty close to the same thing, but you just disagree on the methodology of like what to do about it. So, you know, a lot, I totally get the SJW angle, like what they're talking about. Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I wholeheartedly disagree on their methodology. I think they're absolutely wrong in the direction they want to go. There are better ways to solve these problems. And they're like, and it doesn't require force. It doesn't require conditioning. It just requires having conversations, like, or other things. But there are other ways of doing things. So it's like, ultimately, a lot of people agree on things, but they ignore all the stuff they agree on and look at the stuff they disagree on. Well, and then, okay, round one, fight. And then, you know, it's like Street Fighter all of a sudden. And also, not everybody is on the same plane of existence, of enlightenment, shall we say. It's really easy to look at things from your own perspective, whatever it might be. The social justice people that I know live in first world countries and use iPhones and have flushing toilets and running water that you can actually drink. And so, but it, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. It's really easy when you're in that position of knowledge and possession of all the tools to assume that everybody else carries the same knowledge and has the same tools, but they don't. Like, it'd be like going back to the 1800s and with a light bulb in your hand, and being like, hey, the light bulb, why aren't you using light bulbs? Because this is it. It's like, well, but like, this is just, society's not ready for this shit yet, I'm
trying to remember the name of it. There is a logical fallacy for that, I believe, where it's, I mean, this isn't the name, but it's like the everybody knows fallacy, like you make these broad sweeping assumptions of something, right? Mm-hmm. And you state that at the outset to create this like general assumption that you base your entire argument off of. Mm-hmm. You basically just tell everyone what to think and then build off of that. But that's not necessarily the case.
No, is that something kind of like the no true Scotsman argument? I mean, I think it's similar.
I have that one written up here, actually. Let me see. I'm 40 now. I got to put my glasses.
We'll put that clip in.
Yeah, I think that is actually kind of like the no true Scotsman. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like that's easy to fall into, Mm-hmm. Everybody, you, me, everybody watching, we all make logical fallacies.
Oh yeah.
It's easy.
Well, and I think that like recognition of like how fallible we are is really important. Like I'm always amazed when I do something clever, because I kind of feel like I don't really know a whole lot. Yeah. And I, second guessing myself all the time. But I think feeling confident about what you know, well, this might almost kind of fall into the Dunning-Kruger sort of territory. Like feeling so confident about what you know that you're right and everybody else is wrong. Well, that's exactly what happens with conspiracy theorists. Like, oh, they're out there. Yep, they're just, just spend 10 minutes on YouTube watching flat Earth videos or moon landing hoax videos, and that the thing is, you are one of those people. Like we all are, but it's that recognition, like knowing that that's a possibility and checking yourself against it is really important. Because if you think you're totally right and you have all the answers, well, that's exactly what happens with the flat earthers.
Yeah.
And then you ignore all of the available information, all of the counter information, that like counter arguments and stuff that are like, oh, we'll give that. No, that's not how it is. But you're so convinced that what you believe is right that you're unwilling to even entertain someone else's thoughts or a different way of thinking about things, or alternate information or new information or something like that. I'm honestly like kind of wondering. I'm just waiting to see now that the new James Webb-buh-buh stuff has been released. Like I'm waiting to see what all the like flat Earth peoples have to say about that. Oh God, that's gonna be a good one.
The Dunning-Kruger thing, it's like one thing to keep in the back of your head, I think,
Yeah.
is that, like, if you don't have all the information and you're trying to form an opinion about something, you should be aware that you don't have all the information. And if that's the case, how important is it really for you to take a strong stance on an opinion about that thing? Like, if it's so important, do the research, and I mean actual research, like not watch YouTube videos from your favorite, like whatever wing conspiracist, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I get what you're saying. Like, learn more.
Yeah, if it's that important to you, make sure your opinion is, feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just barking to people like, that person did shitty thing X. You shouldn't like them because I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a piss poor argument. Like,
well,
if I hear that, I automatically am like,
yeah,
what do you think about me when I'm not around? Like,
well,
for fuck's sake, like, like, how judgmental is that?
And I think it's really important too to listen to people, to listen. Like, if your automatic reaction to opposition in thought is yelling at somebody or just no, like, okay, well, obviously you don't know shit, because you're not even willing to investigate things and ask questions and have conversations. You just want to shut people out who disagree with you. Well, you're no different than a flat earther or a moon landing hoaxer. You're in the same camp, because, yeah, like, the way to knowledge is to make mistakes, to ask questions, to ponder things, to perform experiments, to, those kinds of things. Like, that's how we know things. Like, you don't know things simply because, well, you saw some video somewhere with somebody saying some stuff and, well, that sounds right, so now that must be right. Well, that's exactly how wars happen. FYI. Mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? Oh man.
Oh man.
Yeah. I think it's important, like, what you were saying, like, about knowing things and understanding. I don't think anybody knows everything. Nobody has all the answers. None of us do. Maybe we have a little bit of pieces of some stuff with confidence, but it's probabilistic. Like, I encourage everybody to study probabilistic systems and fuzzy logic and stuff like that. That, it isn't a black and white thing. It's kind of like how electrons orbit an atom. Like, well, it could be somewhere in here, but it's probably in this ring, but you never quite know exactly where it is. That's how a lot of stuff works in the universe. And it actually makes sense because the universe, it's all built out of the same stuff.
Well, with electrons, you can technically know where they are, but you can't know the exact spin they have. But you can know the spin they have, you just won't know exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things can't be known at the same time.
Yeah.
Just to be, like, specific about that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, no,
because that's right, what we're talking about, right? It's like, like the nuance, like getting down to the details.
Exactly. Well, and what you said is very similar to what I'm saying. Like, we can't have the answer. There is no the answer. It's more complex than that. And I think it's pretty evident if you look at the latest images from the James Webb-buh-buh telescope, that it like,
what does all this shit matter in the grand scheme of what this telescope has shown us in the speck of a grain of sand at arm's length?
yeah,
Like,
well,
really?
no, you're right.
Who cares what celebrity said what?
Yeah, you're right. There's a black hole, like a supermassive black hole, sucking us in right now. As you watch this video, just look up to the sky, to the center of our galaxy. If you can see the Milky Way, look to the densest part, and what? There's a black hole there.
Just look to the black hole in the sky, sucking us off, sucking us in.
Or both. But it does kind of bring into perspective, like, what matters. Shouldn't we be... Why do we concern ourselves with tribalism and celebrities and all this stuff? Like, all the things that the system tells us to be concerned with. Why shouldn't we be concerned with humanitarian things? Which could be things like taking care of each other, helping somebody, anywhere. Doesn't matter. We should ignore our borders, like, just help people in the world, wherever they are, wherever help is needed, and do great things for humanity, like develop new technologies, explore the cosmos, go up into space. I mean, honestly, I don't have it in front of me, but William Shatner's space trip quote is perfect in illustrating that. But basically, like, yeah, there really is no Earth in space. There's no me in space. It is, it's a game changer. Like, and people be like, wow, it's kind of pointless. Like, what's the point? Well, the point is, sometimes people get in a rut and we get so caught up in our way of thinking that we're unwilling to see things in a different way. And well, maybe we need a kick in the pants. Maybe going up into space and seeing Earth when it's that big and you're in this tiny capsule with like a couple other astronauts or cosmonauts, or whatever. There's a special name for the Chinese astronauts. I can't remember now. It changes permanently your perspective of things. Wars don't make sense. Like, politics doesn't make sense. Borders don't make sense. Like, go into space, into orbit, and show me a border. Take a picture of a border. You can't.
Our concept of leaders doesn't make sense.
No.
Leaders, celebrities, all that shit should just be whoever inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a teacher. That could be an actor, a musician. That could be the homeless guy that creates some really fucking badass art.
Yep.
Whatever it is that you admire, that inspires you, that makes you think, wow, how could I do something like that? That I would find better. Like, just try to improve upon your immediate surroundings, and eventually there'll be a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Of improvements.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you're right. Leaders don't. Well, if you want a litmus test to separate leaders from, I guess, people who want to control you, con men or women, leaders never demand. They never compel. A leader inspires. That's basically what it comes down to. Like a true leader is a person who you are like voluntarily compelled to follow in their footsteps or follow whatever they want to do. Like, wow, okay, this is great. I want to help. Let's make this happen, you know?
Yeah. And the idea that you can affect change by way of boycotting, we got to let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
It, like a broken clock, it might work here and there, right? But for the most part, it's not going to make any kind of difference at all.
No.
You know, like what's going to make a difference is conversation, and it might be a difference in you. You have to be open to that, you know?
Oh, sure.
There are like, well, I'll give an example, like a personal anecdote, you know, like my stance on marijuana. I used to be like hard fast against it. I hated it, you know. I'm totally cool with it now. You know, like I changed my mind in the face of evidence, you know, and I don't even flinch saying that. Like, you know, I'll own that I was a complete dumbass.
Well, yeah, and
that's okay. Like, you know,
sure.
I learned.
It's actually something to feel good about. Like, oh, I have achievement unlocked.
Right.
You know, like I used to be somebody, you know, growing up in a conservative family and stuff. I had a problem with gay people. I thought that was wrong. But, you know, the thing that changed me, I made a gay friend and realized, like, oh, they're just people like us. Like, and from that point on, I could never, it never carried the kind of weight that it did before. And that actually is one of the things that kind of like slowly rolled me into atheism, actually, or I guess agnosticism. That like questioning things, questioning everything, because it's like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Well, now that doesn't make any sense. But wait, hang on a second. As a product, that doesn't make any sense now. Oh my God, fuck. Like, but it's good. Like, it is a good thing. I have so many friends now, who I would not be friends with before, and they're not bad people. They're not evil. They're just people. Like,
I never necessarily had a problem with gay people, but I knew that there were people that had a problem with gay people. And I knew that I personally am like totally straight. So I thought like, oh, my aversion must be like, I guess, right. You know, but then I started thinking like, well, it's right for me.
Yeah.
That's it. Hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what are these people all up in arms about? Okay, I don't give a shit.
It's social conditioning, basically. Like your little circle, your family, your culture, whatever, your tribe tells you stuff, and you know, you
learn from example.
Well, yeah, and you're an impressionable young child, so you kind of are like, oh, well, they know how to do things. They know what's right.
Yeah.
Well, they don't always know what's right. Sometimes they do. Obviously, you know, don't put your hand on the burner. Well, that's good advice.
Yeah.
But saying like, Westboro Baptist Church saying like God hates fags or something. Oh wait, should I not have said that?
One saying is fine.
Yeah, but that's what they actually say.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the thing they say, and it's so
well,
it's so wrong.
Leading by example is the thing, and your examples are never going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, like I feel I was raised in a very progressive household where, my dad grew up in the 50s and 60s and totally had no problem making black friends and, sticking up for black people and stuff. And that's just kind of how I learned. And I had a black, I was friends with the one black kid in the Catholic school I went to.
So was I. Now I wasn't in Catholic school, but it was a religious school.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't.
But fast forward to now, and there's these. I'm hanging out with my dad, and there's stories on the news about cops shooting black people, and my dad's in here going like, "It's just black people get all up in their faces." And white people don't. And I'm like, no. I was like, I constantly remind my dad, like, Dad, I'm always an asshole to cops because they're assholes. Like, they come up and they're all pissed off. And what are you supposed to do? Yes, please, officer. I'm sorry, officer. Can I suck your dick, officer? Like, no.
There are plenty of white people too. It's a brotherhood of like,
but that doesn't make my dad a racist. And it doesn't mean he didn't raise me to like respect black people and see them as human beings.
Yeah. And it may be like his position may come from a standpoint of ignorance.
Yeah. He's not perfect, but he taught me well.
Yeah, exactly. And this is an important thing. Like, it's okay to be ignorant. We are all ignorant. Like, people say, oh, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't really know shit. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's fine. I don't claim to have all the answers. But it's important to strive to know things.
I like to know as much as I possibly can know, but I don't know enough.
Yeah. And having experiences and challenging yourself, that's a good thing. And that's something we should be taught to do on a regular basis. Challenge what we believe, challenge what we think we can and can't do, do things we think we think are impossible, like go to the moon, like, because if in the 50s you said, hey, we're going to go to the moon, people be like, well, that's impossible. And they did say that, but it happened. Like, sorry to break it to all you moon landing hoaxer people, but it actually did legit happen. And it'll happen again too. Apparently there's going to be a moon base now coming up. Yeah, there's a whole new project, and that's good because it's like we don't really know what the hell is going on in the moon. The moon is actually really interesting. Some of the stuff that I've learned about it too, it's like it isn't just a dusty dead planetoid. Like, there might be caverns underneath, all these tunnels and stuff.
Why wouldn't there be?
It's possibly like a spongy hollow shell or something. We don't know. But
maybe it is made of cheese.
It could be. And maybe there's aliens there. There's the whole like weird light patterns that have been going on. We don't know. And that investigating that will answer those questions. We should be investigating that. And yeah, I mean, that's like a bigger picture kind of thing. But as an individual, you yourself can investigate the people around you, the cultures of planet Earth. ask questions, challenge things. Don't be afraid to say something controversial, because what is controversial today, tomorrow is going to be widely accepted. Back in the when we were starting the moon landing or the moon program, it was not okay to be homosexual. Like that was like, you that might, or actually it was not okay to be black too in the US. And now, well, we're totally different about that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going for here.
Well, yeah, it all ties together because we started talking about like our universe.
Mm-hmm.
Just a handful of galaxies and a speck of dust. And there's an entire universe within each of us.
Yeah.
Like vast, complex differences. And we strive to like make them work with one another, almost as if each one of us is a different dimension.
Ooh. Oh man. That's a good one.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be a little TikTok clip.
Yeah. It should be. Can we just like crop this to portrait mode? Yeah. It is remarkable how far we've come in our technology since the days of Hubble. The James Webb-buh-buh telescope is sorry, I've got cat hair there. I think I got it. The James Webb-buh telescope is so much more advanced than Hubble, and Hubble showed us amazing things. It was like the gateway into this strange new world. And now we have this super advanced telescope that's able to show us in detail what's beyond. And I guess to kind of like tie back to what I was thinking about like this space program and people thinking it's useless or, oh, it's just a waste of resources and stuff. Well, maybe, but Voyager is a good example of a good use of that. Like Voyager 1 and 2 are still functioning mostly, well, kinda. But
some of them, well, one of them,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, but they only were supposed to operate for like a couple of years or something like that. And now it's 40 years on and they're still sending back data and they're like going beyond the solar system.
More than 40 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was like early to mid 70s, I think, when they launched. But they also carry with them sort of a little bit of a collection of Earth memorabilia. So if inevitably they're going to get out there to somewhere else out there. So our story as human beings will be told to someone else. And I kind of like that. I feel good about that. Like, and that kind of goes back to the whole seeing these galaxies we can never touch. We'll never see them in person because they're probably gone now. And we'll probably never see the beings that get a hold of the Voyager probes, or one or more of them, and decodes all of the juicy goodness held within. We'll never see that. but it's nice to know that there's a little bit of us out there somewhere.
Yeah. I would be in just as much awe to find out that there's a long extinct race of aliens somewhere that we find evidence of, as if I could shake hands with one living, breathing alien now. You know, like I would feel just as much like, whoa, yeah, because holy shit, you know, like there it is. That's the evidence. We are not the only ones in the plane of time, space, and existence that have been like this.
Yeah. Oh, and well,
whatever
AI
you want to call this.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would call it a simulation. And that brings me to a point like AI, you know, people, well, and it's probably movies that are responsible for the concerns about AI, you know, activate Skynet or something, you know, they get all scared about that. Well, obviously, you know, any kind of machine intelligence is going to be destructive and just be they'll immediately recognize that humankind is a blight on planet Earth and that has to be wiped off. I don't believe that. I kind of have a more hopeful outlook on it. But AI is also a way, you know, who knows what the future is going to hold. Maybe we will find a way to take the gist of our consciousness and put it onto some kind of spacecraft that is timeless-ish, and send it off to any of the far-flung corners of the universe to explore or encounter other species. And, you know, without your corporeal form to hinder you, you might be basically, you know, immortal and be able to actually interact in some sense. I mean, you know, who cares if it's a machine that your program is stored in? I mean, we're kind of the same way here. This biological form is a machine. It's like it is a machine just like any other. And in my mind is a program of neurons and proteins and all kinds of stuff. There's a program.
Which is programmed by society.
Well,
to a large degree.
Yeah, that is a component. There's more to it than that, but that is, yes. But the point is, you could translate our wetware to hardware and send it off in a timeless way to another space and time to interact.
I don't think AI would turn evil.
Mm-hmm.
A machine could be programmed to be evil.
Mm-hmm.
But like we were touching on earlier, how there's no like, and you know, I'm saying evil, but you know, with like air quotes.
Yeah.
There's no like evil in other animals. That's kind of largely a byproduct of our societal programming. You know, like things that drive us to do bad things are societal in nature, I think.
Yeah.
And
you know,
there's selfishness in it, yes, but like that's like an aside, you know, like that's the societal part is the cancer on the nature of the selfishness. Like, oh, I need to eat. Well, in order to eat, I should go kill this person and take their food. You know, like that's the cancer adding on to the I need to eat to live.
Well, and the selfishness is,
but AI won't have that unless it is taught it.
Well,
specifically.
Selfishness in itself isn't evil. It is like a state of being.
Right.
It's a like self-concern, like, okay, I'm concerned with myself. Now, saying that if you have to kill to feed yourself is evil, I don't think so. What makes something evil is killing, and not just killing, but doing, like, going a step beyond just killing somebody or another thing, for reasons that have nothing to do with selfishness, that have nothing to do with like survival, but are just like arbitrary. Like, oh, I don't know, I saw that girl walking in that park and I just wanted to kill somebody, so I killed her, and then I cut her up and put her in garbage bags. You know, that's evil.
That's going to be a TikTok clip too.
Yeah. That actually happened, by the way. Yeah. It's
and of course some of this is like mental illness too, like delusions and hallucinations and things driving people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise. But like there's also situations, I think, that are largely just built as a product of this complex system that we've created. As a community, like a worldwide community.
Well, sure, we're complex beings, capable of unfathomable computations, and we live in a complex world. And then we further complicate it by adding more layers on top of that. What do you expect to be the result? Like, shouldn't we be working on simplifying things and reducing things down? Maybe, maybe it doesn't need to be this complex. And I say complex, I actually mean complicated. Complex is just simply something having a lot of facets for a reason. Complicated would be for no reason.
It's both.
Well, but there's a reason why there's two separate words. Complicated is unnecessarily complex, essentially. And I say society is complicated. It is unnecessarily complex. The world is complex. And, you can't really change that. You could, like, unless you're a god, I guess, you could, like, snap your fingers and everything would be simple. But we can't do that. So we live within the confines of what we exist in. And we're learning.
Well, God couldn't do that. And that's why God can't exist, is because to do something like that would negate free will.
Yeah.
And we all know empirically that we have free will. Even if someone tries to take it from us, we still have it, however muted it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, free will is basically the proof that there is no God.
Huh. Maybe. Although I feel like that itself should be its own episode.
It should, because that's really, like the biggest dichotomy of all. And
yes, it is. And oh man,
God's plan and free will do not live in the same universe.
They don't really exist in harmony with each other. Oh man, dude, how do we? How did this?
Who would have thought this would be such an awesome episode?
I know. Well, and you were like, oh, I'm running on like 30 minutes of sleep. I'm so tired. Like, oh my God, how?
And I'm not even as drunk as usual. I'm just tired.
Oh man,
I'm just having a Dr. Pepper right now. Oh,
I'm running out of beer myself, but damn, this is like really good. As always, we somehow, what are the way that we address things and converse about things, like brings out all kinds of novel ideas. But this is the point, like, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, that how important it is to have a conversation with people.
Yeah.
Like it's more important
I'm
than
sure
ever.
somewhere out there, somebody we've never even met has watched this and their lives have been changed. And we may never know it. But I'm going to just assume that has or will has had happened in the now impossible never chance. And that's good enough, you know?
I agree. I kind of like operate on that assumption that like eventually will make a difference. The whole episode, I'm thinking I'm speaking to somebody who needs help, who needs whatever it is that I know. All the experiences and failures and stuff, and yeah. So, oh man, this is.
I mean, I say it jokingly sometimes, but I do honestly think that the types of conversations we're having are contemporary versions of what dudes like Plato and Socrates were thinking about.
Absolutely,
the human condition stuff.
It is like if Zoom and YouTube existed back then, they'd be like podcasters like us.
We should just have like laurel leaves and robes and stuff. Like,
oh man, Jesus. Oh God.
Or do a Halloween episode where we're transported back like 3,000 years and
but that is a good point, that people tend to look at things through a myopic lens, that we'll look at all the stuff we have. We've got cars and we've got jets and spacecraft and computers in our pockets and all kinds of things. But really nothing has actually changed. We're still humans. We've evolved, but not really that much.
Planes are pretty fascinating. They probably wouldn't have existed without art.
Yeah.
Da Vinci's drawings, his ideas were probably the groundwork for the Wright brothers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Da Vinci also invented the tank and a weird version of the helicopter. I think it's called an ornithopter, like a helical lifting mechanism. Would it work? I don't know. Well, okay, probably wouldn't, because if it did, people would have made it by now. Because it's out of patent, so you can.
The concept is enough to spark the idea.
Well, yeah,
for someone to improve upon.
Exactly, and
that's the point. Yeah,
that's sort of what like asking questions comes down to,
or the competition, the healthy competition aspect.
Yep, exactly. Oh man, Jesus, this is
how we will get to other galaxies.
So if we're gonna put laurels on our heads and stuff, can I play the role of Cicero? Because he's kind of my hero. Just saying.
I'll be Socrates.
Socrates. Oh man, step into my phone booth. Oh man. Oh geez. Now I gotta watch some Bill and Ted.
Bogus.
Bogus, man. Hmm. Oh my God.
Well, if you think we're a couple of bodacious philosophers, man, then you should like and share and subscribe to the channel, man.
And check out the song that might be queuing up. It'll be a new one, I think. I think we have a new song. We'll see.
Yeah, we still got quite a few in the bank.
Yeah.
And don't forget to look at those pictures from the James Webb-buh-buh telescope.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Fucking
beautiful
cool.
stuff. Beautiful
Especially
stuff.
the nebula is my favorite.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome.
It is incredible. And
Like, we've seen galaxies before, like, but that nebula was like holy shit.
And knowing how much there is out there and how gone it is now, like, sure, it could dishearten you. You could feel like really bad about your place in the universe, but no. In fact, we should feel special. All of us are special. Like, it's frankly almost, well, speaking to the Apollo program, it is impossible that we exist, yet we do. Here we are. Here Casey and I are talking about what we're talking about, and here you are watching the video. So
it's all relative. Like, the things we see that are millions of years dead, we forget that there are things we can't yet see that exist as well.
Ooh, yeah. Oh man.
And it's just a matter of distance and time and physics. Yeah. So
and maybe, for some people, the scale of things is really hard to wrap your head around. I mean, a million years. A lot of people still think a light year is a measure of time. Well, that's like sci-fi is responsible for that. But
it's kind of like, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the light,
okay, true,
it is technically time, but
it's time.
It is a distance for our purposes.
Yeah, it's time plus space, basically. Yeah. But the universe is,
it's a vector.
Yeah. The universe is very big and very empty, but also very full of things. And I don't know. Maybe that's a good point to end on. Like, it's, speaking of things that are hard to wrap your head around. Well, so throw your comments down there in the comment section. Let us know what you think. We always encourage that. Have conversations. Throw out weird and wacky ideas. No question is too dumb. No idea is stupid. Have conversations. That's
no troll is too lol.
Well, you suddenly like
I don't speak kid.
That's very earthling. Yeah. Oh man. I don't know. I'd like to hear people talking about their favorite space thing, whatever it is, a space story, a movie, a spaceship,
or human condition.
Yeah.
Well, we went through all of that shit, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, the world is your oyster. All down there in the comment section. Throw it in. Tell us what you think. Talk to somebody. Make a friend too. Have a conversation with somebody you don't know. Make a friend. Why not? Because we exist on this plane, well, for a blink of an eye, and then our star blows up. Yeah, it'll happen. And then we get sucked into the black hole, billions of years in the future. So, yeah.
So what is it?